on shows like Supernatural. In Manifest, she's playing Michaela Stone, Melissa Roxburgh. And he's the guy who has all the answers for the entire series. Executive producer and series creator, Jeff Rake. Welcome, everybody. Okay, I was getting hit up on Twitter quite a bit today. People want to know what should the fandom for this show be called. So I'm going to see if you guys can help out. Should they be manifestors? Should they be passengers?
Passengers!
What do we think?
Passengers!
Maybe we can have different factions.
Okay.
Right?
Don't split up our fans.
Let's start an army, manifestors.
So we'll do manifestors and passengers, and we'll see who wins.
That's right.
Game on.
Jeff, obvious first question. I mean, this is one of those shows with a great mythology, and I'm sure it's going to roll out for many, many years. But where did the idea come from, just to get the whole story started?
I'd like to say that there's a sexy and mysterious backstory to the show. In truth, this came to me driving in a minivan halfway between LA and the Grand Canyon. I was with my wife, she's here, our 4 kids, and I was just an out-of-work TV writer. By the way, this was 10 years ago when I thought of this idea. And I was just thinking about big ideas, but also ideas that would involve family, emotional stories, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I pitched it around, nobody bought it. Years went by, Malaysian Airlines happened, we all can see the inspiration there, and then I thought to myself, well, maybe there's a second chance for this old idea, and there was.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, I asked you this when we interviewed for the magazine.
Yeah.
You know, people think of Lost and other shows that had these great mythologies that sometimes went on a great track, sometimes veered off a little bit. You've got this kind of charted out in a long way, right?
I do. I have a pretty serious roadmap. You know, when you create a show that's an event mystery in 2018, the buyers want to know that you know where you're going. They want to know that there's an end game, and so when I went in, I kind of walked them through all the way to the end of the series. Broad strokes. They don't know everything, but I know a lot.
Now, Josh and Melissa, when you first started talking to Jeff about the show, I'm guessing you had some questions, just like we all have questions about where the show is going.
I had a lot of questions about character, but you know, I set it up early on with Jeff that I didn't want to know the answers. I didn't want to know what the mystery was, because I want to go along with the character. I want to discover it along with Ben, because he's going to go on this journey along with Michaela to figure out what happened to them. And I think it's better for me on this particular project not to know and discover it along with you guys.
I would say the same. I didn't want to know, and I'm still trying not to want to know, but I'm also kind of like a fan too at the same time, so I'm asking him questions like, but don't tell me, but tell me.
So you two are playing brother and sister. Has there been any on-set hazing, any kind of just brotherly sister?
Always. You're always doing something. You're always complaining about it. Something.
A little bit.
A lot.
What did both of you kind of see in your characters that kind of made you excited to play them with Ben and Michaela?
I think Michaela's really cool in the fact that she's a human being. She's not, an idea of a strong female. She's not an idea of anything really. She's just a human. She's strong, but she's incredibly flawed. She's made mistakes that we can all relate to. And Jeff did a really good job writing that. So.
For Ben, his mind works very differently than mine, and I found that intriguing. And he's way smarter than I actually am. I'm a spiritual guy. I believe in a higher power, and I believe in the universe. And Ben is very scientific. He's a mathematician. He deals in absolutes. He deals in the truth. He deals in logic, and I found that to be interesting and intriguing. He's likes to be the smartest guy in the room at all the time, and that can be a downfall. He's aware of it, but which kind of softens him up a little bit. But he can be obsessive at times, which can lead to him being reckless at times. But ultimately, you know, he's a great family man, and he has a great love for his family, and he's going to go on this journey of trying to reclaim his life and figure out what his new normal is now.
And both of them have kind of romantic threads at the start of the series, whether it's a relationship that's no longer, or a marriage that maybe has some questions around
They
it.
both suck.
Yeah, he comes back. They both come back, and they come back to a world that looks the same, but is very, very different. You know, they're both strangers in this strange land, and 5.5 years that our families, the ones that were left behind, they've had time now to start to rebuild their life, to start moving on. And I think when we come back, they've just gotten to a point where that's starting to begin. And now their lives are being torn apart yet again. So there's it's so complex, just like in a family dynamic, and they're going to try to navigate those waters.
Will Michaela be fighting for her man to get him back?
I mean, I think that's like the ethical question here of like, do you let that person continue to be happy? Do you try and take it back? Do you, what's selfish versus selfless? So I think we see a bit of that.
And we're going to get into that right away, episode 2.
Also, what we saw in the pilot, there seem to be some questions of faith versus science. Is that a big thrust of the show as we move forward for all the characters?
It's a huge thrust of the show, as Josh was alluding to, Ben, he's kind of inspired, for me, he's kind of inspired by Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters. He is science-based, he's tenacious, he believes there's an earthbound explanation for what's happened here. Michaela is a lapsed person of faith. You saw the importance that religion played in her mother's life, and Michaela believes that all of this might connect to a higher calling. That debate, science versus faith, drives series, and it'll be one of our series mythology questions as we move through the seasons.
And the voices that these characters are hearing in this episode, there's a good cause for it. But I remember asking you, should this voice or voices be trusted? Are there going to be non-good things that they might be asking these people to do? How would that play out?
Right, so it's voices in this episode. As we get into episode 2 and beyond, we're going to discover that these callings work in other ways. They're not just voices, they're not just visions. For the first few episodes, it will seem like it is all to a clear good end. By the time we get to episode 4, things will start to go a little bit sideways, and they'll come to wonder whether or not these callings that they're experiencing can be trusted. The agency ends up staying with them. They have to decide whether or not they want to believe in what they're experiencing, and sometimes it'll be for the better, sometimes it'll be for the worse.
Will the voices ever say things like, Ben, dance?
We hope not.
A little levity, a little lightness in there. I'd like to see that. So the other characters in the show, obviously in the very last scene, you see there's so many other people involved in this, all the people that survived. How much more will we be spending time with them? Will they be different people coming in and out, or will we get to know all of them collectively? How does that play out?
We're going to get to know a lot of the people from that plane. You glimpsed a few in this episode who spoke up for a moment, either on the airplane or in the questioning afterwards. We're going to get to know all of them, starting in episode 2 and onward. Their lives will intertwine with Michaela and Ben in surprising ways. There's 191 people on that plane, so we have many stories to tell.
Sounds like a show that could run for a long time.
From your lips, my friends.
All right, guys, Manifest premieres September 24th at 10 p.m. on NBC. Thanks, everybody.